Hey everyone, this is Thyworm and today we will discuss the top 5 build enabling uniques in Last Epoch. Those are uniques really worth getting because they allow you so much versatility in builds. Enjoying Last Epoch content? Consider subscribing. I wanted to make a video about these uniques because they are valuable items to have, but also to make you understand why these particular uniques are so good. You'll gain more insight this way into itemization as well, which is useful. Let's start with number 5, URZIL'S Pride. At first glance, URZIL'S Pride may not be a unique that looks all that spectacular. It has only 50 armor, a very decent amount of strength, a bit of mana, but most of all it provides mana regeneration. Every 100 points of armor you get 1% mana regeneration, and this stat alone is enabling quite a few builds, especially in classes where it is hard to get mana regeneration. The class that has the most issues getting mana back is the Sentinel. He is based around strength, block, protection and armor most of the time. Mana regen is not in his passives. It is in some of the skills, but that is about it. There are a lot of spells in the Sentinel kit that consume a lot of mana, however, and with no natural and easily accessible ways of regenerating mana, using these skills will make you go out of mana rather quickly, and that is where URZIL'S Pride comes in. This unique scales very well with armor, which is a stat that Sentinels tend to have a lot of. Strength increases armor. Your shield may use block armor. Your gear has high armor values. There's armor increases in the passive trees, and you can gain a lot of armor from certain skills depending on how you specialize them. All this armor then directly translates into mana regeneration by using URZIL'S Pride, which then allows you to use some of the more expensive skills in the Sentinel kit like Warpath. This unique by itself solves most mana issues on most Sentinel builds, which is why it is such a build enabling item. Number 4, LLIATH'S Signet. While this unique ring doesn't necessarily enable particular builds to exist, it does do an outstanding job of creating a lot of build options simply by equipping the item. In order to make an endgame viable build, you need to invest in reaching the glancing blow cap. That is 100%, which means all incoming damage is reduced by 50% from all damage sources. You can reach this by either equipping 4 items with the set glancing blow affix, tier 5, that is taking up 4 precious prefix slots, however, or you can reach it by using the regular glancing blow affix, but then you need 6 of those, which consumes 6 suffix slots on your gear. All this is quite a hassle to get. With this ring, all of this stuff is in the past, because LLIATH'S Signet caps your glancing blow, albeit under one condition, and that is that you have to use a channeling skill. If you make any build that uses channeling skills as the main form of damage, like Warpath, Avalanche, Disintegrate, or any other mage spell you turn into a channeling spell like Elemental Nova or Fireball, then you need only this ring to be glancing blow capped. You are essentially saving yourself a ton of affix slots, which you can then use for something else. What works particularly well are the increased damage and increased armor and protections while channeling affixes, because it synergizes so nicely. This unique ring makes channeling builds very versatile and opens up all sorts of options, which is why it is included in the list. Number 3, the Eye of REEN. The Eye of REEN is a katana with very high attack speed, very high ignite chance, very high numbers of flat melee damage, and a cool buff effect to go on top of it all. Just because of the stats this weapon offers, it's already worth taking in any melee fire ignite build. Especially on paladins, the Eye of REEN enables a lot of ignite builds, simply by its attack speed and proc chance for ignite. Just by equipping this weapon, you can add 2 ignite stacks every melee attack, and you do 1.25 melee attacks per second by default, so that is some serious ignite stacking from a single item. But this item offers more, because every time you crit with this weapon you receive a buff for 5 seconds, the REEN's Ire buff. This buff is a stacking buff, and it increases both crit multipliers and fire damage over time by 5% for each stack. And this stuff gets out of hand quickly if you use skills like Rive, for example, which have extremely fast attack speeds, or Warpath, or Smite, which increases attack speed by another 50%. You can stack up REEN's Ires and build around it and get around 50% additional fire damage over time on an item that is already good just by itself. Number 2. EXSANGUINOUS. This unique has by far the worst name in the game, apart perhaps for URZIL'S sphere. The name is fitting, however, because this unique basically bleeds you dry. Only bleeding you dry wouldn't be a great proposition, so you get something in return, which is Ward. Ward is a very useful resource. Ward is basically functioning like energy shield in PoE or force shield in Voltron. Ward increases your effective health, and by doing that it reduces the need for protections. The more effective health you have, the less useful protections and armor are, because they start mitigating less and less exactly because of your large health pool. The advantage of Ward, however, is that it regenerates very quickly, much faster than health does. You can pull off a lot of synergies with Ward, especially on characters that use intelligence and have stats like Ward retention in their kit, characters like a Lich or a Spellblade. This is why the EXSANGUINOUS is such a good item, because it turns most of your health into Ward, which lets it synergize with all those Ward nodes, Ward retention and Ward interactions out there. It provides a very decent base Ward pool, which you can enlarge by stacking health, which is then converted into more Ward. You can equip the Bone Clamor Barbute helmet, if you have it, for more Ward generation per second, and you can top it off with an Aegis offhand, potentially for another 40 Ward per second. All of this stuff combined with a bit of Ward retention as you sit at around 1.5 or 2k Ward without doing anything. That is a lot of effective health, and by using more passive nodes and skills you can get Ward in the tens of thousands, making you virtually unkillable. EXSANGUINOUS helps with all of this by enabling a very decent base Ward pool to build on. Another advantage of this item is that you're immune to bleed effects, which enables some more options and funky synergies. Some skill tree specializations make you bleed as a downside, such as the Hemophilia node in Transplant. This downside is completely negated if you equip the EXSANGUINOUS, which makes this a very strong body armor to have available. It drives a lot of interesting builds, and it's also one of my favorite items in the game. And number 1, without a doubt the most potent unique in the current meta, the Plaguebringer staff. This staff is pretty nuts. You can roll up to 250% chance to poison on hit, which would apply between 2 and 3 poison stacks each hit. It also inflicts Plague, another poison effect, which doesn't stack but it spreads to enemies. It inflicts blinding poison and just flat out blinds enemies. And it drains your current health, but that's really a minor setback for such a powerful item, and it can be negated by either getting a bit of health regen or by offsetting this with the EXSANGUINOUS. The Plaguebringer is pretty much a best in slot item for any poison build, as you can imagine, and poison in the current meta, 0.7.7F, is a very strong game mechanic and does pretty much the biggest damage out there because of the way it stacks. Ailment stacking in action RPGs is a notorious problem, and the last Epoch unfortunately is no exception at this point in time. The Plaguebringer is unfortunately a very hard weapon to find, and you need to get lucky if you want to get one. Drops are totally random, target farming does not exist apart from gambling, so it may take a while before this item shows up for you. Once it does though, you can go ham with it. And if you think it is mostly poison builds that benefit from this, you're mistaken. The poison mechanic is currently so powerful that it really doesn't matter which build you're running with this staff, as long as there are a lot of hits involved. Some colleague content creators, particularly Boardman21, I'll link his channel down below, has made tons and tons of builds with this weapon, even builds that normally should not benefit from this at all, like an Avalanche Shaman. And that's all on Uniques for today. Follow me on Twitter at Thyworm. Thanks so much for watching and making it to the end. See you soon. Bye bye.